In this video, we're going to take a look at how to create a Vex robotics assembly for a first class lever as part of activity 112, What's Simple About a Combine. In this, we're going to go ahead and take a look at, I've got all the Vex components I need to build the first class lever. And the first one I'm going to start with is the base plate. Before we get started, just want to note that we have an untitled design file that I just kind of have open right now. I'm going to go ahead and click the save button. And in the name, we'll call this first class lever. And go ahead and click save. Once I have that, I'm going to right click on the base plate file and select insert into current design. Now the way the base plate file comes in, we may need to use the grips, so the little circular grips, to rotate this down 90 degrees. We want to make sure that our little quick menu shows 90 degrees. And I'm actually going to rotate this another 90 degrees because of the orientation that I have this kind of set in. I'm going to go ahead and select OK on Move Copy. The next thing I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to bring in a 3-inch standoff. So I'm going to right click on this and select Insert into Current Design. What will happen here is when I bring this up, I can use the little arrow grips by clicking and holding down to drag them. So I'll drag this up just so that way I can get it up out of the plate here. And I'll select OK. Before we get moving, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to right click on this base plate component. And I want to select Pin. So this used to be called Ground. And now this is Pin. So we're going to pin this. And if I click and drag on the base plate, it will not move, but I can still click and drag on the standoff. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go up here to the Assemble panel, and I'm going to grab the Joint command. We're going to go ahead and I'm going to zoom in real close. There's a circular edge on this that will actually highlight and become bolded, and you'll see the joint origin will show up right in the middle of the circular opening on that standoff. I'm going to go ahead and select when I see that. I'm going to zoom out. And on our base plate somewhere, we can just kind of go with an approximate location. So maybe right about here on this hole is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click. I want to make sure my cursor stays on the face so you can see how the selection shows all those points. I'm going to hold the control key, or if you're on a Mac computer, you're going to hold command. And I'm going to go up here and I'm just going to select one of the edges like this. And it doesn't quite get it over the hole, so I'm actually going to drag the offset over by 0.1 inches. And what will happen here is if I keep this open and I just rotate with the view cube, or I rotate with that, you can see there's the hole opening right over, as if we were going to place this on top of the base plate and run a screw up through the bottom of this. I'm going to go ahead and select OK. One of the things is you will see these little joint glyphs kind of show up. I'm actually going to hide that by clicking on the eyeball next to the joints folder. And we're just going to kind of clean up our assembly that way. The really neat part about this is we're going to add something called, in the Assemble panel, called Duplicate with Joints. So it's a new feature that just came out around spring of 2024. And Duplicate with Joints is it asks for, first off, to select the components. So I'm actually going to select the standoff, and then the next thing it's going to ask me for is what's the next snap point. So I'm actually going to go ahead and along this same column, I'm going to skip this hole here in the middle, and I'm going to pick on the same exact kind of position as I did before. And if you notice, it's going to put another component, and it's going to apply a rigid joint to that particular one. So I'm going to go ahead and keep this command active, and I want to go ahead and going across here, I can see I've got one hole here, 2, 3, 4. On the fifth one, I want to go ahead and place a point. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hover in there, click to place. I should have 4 holes between these 2 posts. And then the same thing up here is I'm going to click in the same position. I'm going to place 2 of those. So that way I get a set of 4 standoffs. If I check my joints folder, I can see I've got 4 rigid joints, each one copied over with the same thing. So now I can go ahead and also look at adding in another component into here. I'm going to collapse this joints menu. And we're going to take a look at adding the pillow block bearing. So I'm going to right click and say Insert into Current Design. I'll bring this up. I'll select OK. And I'm going to just go ahead and hold the Shift key and click on my mouse button to rotate so that way I can see underneath. I'm going to run my joint command again. I usually like to pick on, anytime you're on a circular edge like this, I always like to make sure to click the edge of the circle. So I'm going to select it. I'm going to rotate back down. And then I'm going to find, again, the circular edge right here on the standoff. And when I click, it's going to bring that into place. If it happens to, don't forget to flip. Your flip menu is right here. So if it brings it in like this, you can always flip it. And then that way it does that. And it usually depends on which direction the joint origin operates. I'm going to go ahead and select OK. Same kind of scenario. I'm going to go up here and go to Assemble, Duplicate with Joints, select that component, pick on the same exact place as what I did before, and it's going to add another one with a rigid joint right there. While we've got this kind of placed, I'm going to go ahead and add in some of the 1/2 inch star drive screws. So I'm going to go ahead and select Insert into Current Design. I'm going to go ahead and drag this up here just a little bit. And I'm actually going to go ahead and rotate this so that way I can kind of see the underneath side. It looks like I'm going to put this in upside down, but I'm doing it so that way I can go ahead and just select my joint command. I'm going to select the circle that's right underneath the screw head here. And I want to go ahead and I want to place it right there. And I do want to flip it so that way, notice how it wants to kind of carry that over. So now it's going to put a screw in there, which is going to be how we're actually going to build our assembly. I'm going to select OK. Very similar, I'm going to go ahead and say Duplicate with Joints, select my screw, select the circle, and it's going to add another one in there. I'm going to go over here and I'm going to do the same thing. Click, and when I see the outside edge of the circle highlight, now I've got screws all placed in this particular spot. I'm going to rotate down. We do have to place a couple spots here. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to choose that. You're going to see that in these, that it placed it upside down. So I actually want to go over here into this menu and click on the More, which is the 3 dots. And the last one says a standoff. That was the last one. If I click the flip button in here, it'll flip it around. I want to kind of draw your attention to that because the same kind of thing will happen. I'm going to go ahead and place the remaining 3 because it's going to do that for all 3 of these. Click the More, flip the last 3, and then that way all the screws go up into to hold the standoff to the base plate. So that'll also tell you what kind of thing that you have going on here. I'll go ahead and select OK. So as you notice, once you select OK, it does add all those components into your listing, and it also has all the joints will be added to your joints folder as well. This will get us, at this point, this is a great stopping place. This will get us kind of the good start for our assembly. In the next part, we'll look at adding in the C channel and some of the other little components to connect it to these uprights, and look at finishing out the assembly.